right there is how you play incredibly below average golf.
Welcome into Over Par here on ESPN 1037 Lafayette on 1041 Lake Charles. Matt Miguez here, and it is time for the biggest weekend in golf. It is the 89th playing of the Masters at Augusta National Golf Club. Again, there's nothing better than the second weekend in April. And joining me to talk about it from Golf Digest is Alex Myers. Alex, really appreciate you taking the time once again, man. How are you?
You got it. I'm doing great. I'm super excited as all golf fans are for this week.
So this will be number what to Augusta for you?
Great question. I think it will be my 10th working in a working capacity, and then I was fortunate enough to go three times as a fan starting in 2007. So what is that? I've only
15?
missed I went 2007, 2009, and then I went for work for the first time in 2015. I remember it was when Spieth won. And then I only missed one. My daughter was born right around this time. Fortunately, but unfortunately, not
Right.
great timing. I missed the Patrick Reed one. So, wasn't no offense to Patrick Reed. It
Yeah.
wasn't yeah. So yeah, I've gone, I think, 10 of the last 11. So very excited, very lucky.
So in your opinion, as somebody who's obviously, worked the Masters and been there as a fan, obviously, there's been some incredible moments in the history of the Masters.
Yeah.
But what is it that makes this tournament so special?
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking about that with some friends recently, the friends who I went to the first time in 2007. And it really is just the familiarity of the place. I mean, you've seen it so many times on TV, and you just feel like you know every hole before you even get there. Now, of course, once you get there, you see so many more things, and you see the elevation changes, and you see all these little nooks and crannies. But there's just a familiarity there, and you can just I think there's just a vibe where like everyone who is there is just so excited to be there. Um, I'm a guy, I'll put my hand up. I'm always looking at my phone to a fault. It's bad. I got, the kids will even get on me sometimes, and I'll be like, all right, I got to do a better job. But at the Masters, you can't have your phone. So you put the phone away. And so everyone is just glued into this golf tournament. And they just want to be there so bad, and they're so excited to be there, and they're just all taking it in. So, part of me when I'm working there, I'm like, man, I wish they'd let me take my phone out there, but that's kind of their secret sauce, I think. That keeps them different from any other golf tournament. So it's just a different feel because of again the familiarity and then these, anti phone laws that they have there.
So for the most part, the weather plays nice during the second weekend in April in Augusta.
Yeah.
Um, obviously, I don't know if you've looked at the weather report yet. Um, Temperatures hanging around the mid 70s. Rain chances
Nice.
pretty low as of now. Still a week
That's
away. Things could change. Um,
yeah.
but looking pretty good right now for some golf.
That's great. I actually hadn't looked. I thought about it this morning because I played my first round here yesterday up in New York, and it was supposed to be 70 degrees. And of course, it got to be like maybe 69 degrees at 4 p.m. We teed off at 10 in the morning, and it was 50 and raining and wind chill of like 40. And I thought, man, I hope the weather's not like this at Augusta because I've been there when it has been bad. In fact, my first year ever in 2007, I remember the whole week everyone was just like, it's never been like this, and
Right.
we picked the it was the year that Zach Johnson won, and it was real for there frigid. And it didn't rain much, but it was just so cold and windy, and it's tough. And of course, everything's better when the weather's good. So I'm glad to hear that you said the weather forecast looks good. I feel like I would have heard if it was bad by now because people like to put those doom and gloom posts out
For
there.
sure.
But if it's good, that's a good sign. But like you said, it can turn on a dime. But that's good news.
So going to the field itself, Scotty Scheffler, world number one, he's won this tournament before. He's always played well at Augusta. Uh, and then you have Rory McIlroy, a guy who has some pretty infamous choke jobs,
Yes.
for lack of better words, at Augusta. This is the one major that eludes him. The way he's playing right now, though, gives me a little bit of confidence that maybe this year could be different for him. What are you seeing on the Rory front as he heads into Augusta?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, then he has this great weekend in Houston. And then he tells Kira Dixon of NBC Sports that he's got an elbow issue. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, he shot 65, 64, so I don't know how bad it is, but that to me, it's almost like he's talking himself into a reason why he won't win. That's the only thing that's concerning to me. I'll take it back even a couple weeks before he wins the Players, but of course, that big story early in the week was he hears a fan who happened to be one of the best college golfers in the country yell out, just like 2011 at the Masters. He hooks a ball into the water on 18 there, and Rory goes over and takes the guy's phone out of his hand. So clearly, you mentioned, he's had some bad moments here. Clearly, 14 years later, that's still in his head.
Yep.
Where a comment from a kid who would have been 5 years old when that happened says, and he goes over and takes his phone. So he's got issues. He's got demons with Augusta National. There is no doubt about it. That would be the only thing holding me back. Obviously, he can play there. I think it's 7 top tens in his last 11 starts there. So, and that doesn't even include 2011 when he had the 3-shot lead or whatever going to the back nine, and it looked like he was going to cruise to his first green jacket. So he can obviously play the course. He hits it right to left. Obviously, we know he's long. The putter lets him down, but the putter lets Scotty Scheffler down, and
Right.
look how well he's done there. So he's got the game to do it. He's just been a little volatile there. He'll have that one bad round, it seems, that kind of shoots himself in the foot, whereas a Scotty Scheffler or Tiger in his prime would have the one bad round, but he would keep it to a 73, 72. Rory will put up the 76, 77. It's tough to bounce back from that. So am I picking him to win? Probably not, but I do think that he will win one at some point.
Now, how do you feel about the live guys that are going to come into this field? Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka.
Yeah.
Brooks. I had a friend tell me earlier this week that Brooks just kind of feels like a guy that could make a run at it. What are you seeing out of that end?
Yeah, I mean, and I think Brooks finished runner-up at the last live event in Singapore or whatever. Not that anybody was watching, but like he does seem to all of a sudden, I know previous couple years he's won a live tournament before, some of these majors. He does kind of coast these other weeks. I know he doesn't like to admit that, but it does seem like he does that. And then around the majors, he does kind of get locked in. So I'm never that worried about Brooks. Going back to 2019, it still kind of feels crazy that he or Francesco Molinari didn't win that year when Tiger won. It was right there for him. We saw, I think it was forgot which season it was. I guess it was last season, the second season of Full Swing, where he has this great trophy room at home or trophy case, and he has the middle spot open for the Masters trophy. Like he wants that, and he's played well there. So yeah, I have complete confidence in him. Rahm, I think, had an off year last year, but he's a guy who I said years ago I was just going to keep picking until he won, and he did win. Cam Smith with his short game, you'd think would be a factor there. And then Bryson, though, to me, actually, I would put him above all the other guys out of the live crop. A couple of years ago, I would have said Bryson's never going to win one. And I've been there. I've seen him talk about the place. They don't let you use those green books that they use at other tournaments. They've kind of limited at other tournaments too, but the Masters was the first to complete. They said you can't have these really intricate green books. Bryson is a guy, as we all know, with his scientific mind. He likes as much information as possible. Other golfers would say, I don't want to hear that. He needs it. And so it's almost like a crutch for him. And so I think that kind of killed him. But Now that he's had a few more years of experience under his belt, as we all know, Augusta is a place, the more you play it, the better you get to know it. And we saw that last year. I think he had the 36-hole lead. He faded a little on Saturday. He easily finished in the top 10. He didn't, he wasn't right there at the end, but it was his best performance there. So I do think that he has the game to do it. For a while, I thought this just isn't going to be his place. He's more of a U.S. Open guy. But he showed last year that he can hang there. And I talk about an electric, weekend.
Yep.
If Bryson is near the top of the board, that would really be something. But of all the live guys, I think I'd probably pick him, followed by Rahm. But certainly, as we just mentioned, there's at least four guys who I think are serious contenders this week.
From a breaking down the game perspective, you talked about Cam Smith and his elite short game.
Yeah.
Obviously, Bryson's known for hitting nearly 400-yard drives.
Yeah.
What skill set do you think plays more into Augusta? Is it a course, in your opinion, where you need the elite short game, or can you grip it and rip it and then just figure it out from there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll cheat a little here and just say there is some weather dependency here. If it doesn't rain a lot and the course is very firm, you are going to get guys missing more greens, and then the short game comes into even more effect. If you look back at the guys who have won, and of course we're talking about the greats of the game: Nicklaus winning 6, Tiger winning 5, Phil 3, now Scheffler with 2. You really have to, maybe more than any other major, have to bring it in all
Right.
aspects. If I picked anywhere, I still would probably say the iron play. And you could probably say that about most places, but especially at Augusta with the different elevations and undulations from the fairways and the slopes, it's very rare that you have a flat lie there. So, you have to be even extra precise
Yep.
on the ball striking. And then the greens, and our Luke Kerr-Dineen just did a great piece on that this week. The greens, even when you look at them from far away, you're like, oh, that's a pretty big green. But they have what he called the effective green sizes. They're these little pockets that are flat. The rest of the greens are, up and down, left to right. And so just hitting the green is not good at
For
Augusta.
sure.
You have to hit it in these right spots, or maybe even just off the green in the right spot. And so again, that goes back to, of course, your iron play and being super precise with that. And so Scheffler, has been clearly the best player from tee to green the last couple of years, or last 3 years, and that's why he's the overwhelming favorite. But again, it is a place that does seem to want to test every part of your game. You can't really fake it in one area where you could maybe get away at another place.
Talking about iron play, that's what made Tiger so great.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he was the best. Yeah,
That was his sweet spot. He never
exactly.
drove the ball, 350. His short game was never elite. It was his iron play that
Yeah.
made him so successful. Speaking of Tiger, not going to play in the tournament this year. It'll be the
Right.
first time he misses the Masters since 2021. I know he hasn't been competitive at Augusta the last couple of years, but him not being there at all, what does that do?
It stinks. I went out there last year on Sunday early because, he had made the cut, obviously, to keep that amazing streak going. And it's kind of amazing that he basically plays a couple times a year and can still make the cut at the Masters, where you're going to get, a handful of big names who are not going to make the cut.
Correct.
But he was finishing up, and it was early. And, the leaders hadn't even teed off yet. And I forgot who I was with, but we were out there, and he missed the green on 18. We're like, oh, he's probably going to bogey. And he hit this amazing little pitch shot, and it just stuck, and it spun to like tapping range. And the place just went crazy. And he tapped it in for par, tipped the cap, crowd stands up. I'm getting goosebumps, chills just thinking about it. And it was like the best moment of the week for me was probably that. And there weren't even that many people out there yet. I mean, it was filled around, of course, but not like what you'll see at the end. And it just shows, like, if he does anything the patrons are so appreciative and they just love to see him. And so again, this was the one week, we didn't know he was doing the TGL stuff, and we thought maybe he'd come back at the Genesis or maybe he'd come back at the whatever it was, but you knew he was going to come back at the Masters. And now that he's not, it's definitely a blow to the tournament. Again, like you said, would he have been competitive? Probably not. I mean, 99% not. But he still brings a lot, even when he's just there. And I do hope, and all indications are that he still will go to at least the champions dinner. And I mean, he loves that. He loves just hanging out with the guys, talking shop. And so hopefully at least we'll see him on the property, but just unfortunately not swinging any golf clubs.
All right, Alex, pick your winner. Who's getting a green jacket on Sunday?
Oh, man, it's so tough. I I think I'm gonna go with Colin Morikawa. He just and again,
Really?
yeah, it stunned me a few weeks ago that he didn't win that event when Russell Henley,
No.
clipped him at the end, hold out the eagle. He has played so well since the start of last year. I think he's fifth in strokes gained total. So he's a top five player in the world, and yet he does not have a win in that span. He is so overdue to win. We talk about the great iron play. No one better than him. Obviously Scheffler right there, but you really could make a case that Morikawa is even the best with the iron play. The putter always lets him down, if we're being honest. But God, he just has the whole, you
Yep.
know, one more putt a day than he's used to,
Right.
something like that. That's all it can take that'll make the difference. So, of course, if my life were on it, I would pick Scotty Scheffler, of course. How could you not? He's 3-1 odds. But if I'm actually going to make a bet on any of those favorites, I'd like to get at least. I think Morikawa is more in like the 18-1 range. Get a little bang for your
Yep,
buck on.
for sure.
That's probably where my first bet would go. Colin Morikawa.
All right, give me a dark horse.
Okay. Well, I kind of just mentioned, I don't know if he even counts as a dark horse anymore, but he's got to be 40-1 or so. Russell Henley, he got that great win down there in Florida. I think he finished fourth here last year at Augusta. It was definitely in the top five. He's a great player. He's 35. He's been around for a while, but he could still just be kind of hitting his groove here. And he's one of the best iron players out there. So when he's in a groove, he's very tough. So yeah, I guess if you count a guy who's won, I think he's won 5 PGA Tour events or that's my dark horse, Russell Henley.
I'll give you one right here.
Okay.
Xander Schauffele.
Ah, dark horse. Come on. I was almost going to pick him.
Xander Schauffele.
You just think no one's
And
talking about him?
he's not really. I don't know that I could necessarily
Yeah.
consider him a true dark horse,
Yeah.
but he just feels like one of those guys that could just show up at Augusta and dominate
Yeah.
at any given moment.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel good about Xander this year.
I've bet on him many a year there. I might have to go back to the well one more time. It's been a weird year for him. Obviously, he had that rib injury. He took some time off, but he's back. He's continued that made cut streak that he has. It's the
Yep.
current longest. And yeah, he's got a great track record here. He has had a couple 2019, he was another guy right there when Tiger won, where he's probably still thinking about that one sometimes at night. But no, I love Xander as well. That's a solid pick.
Alex, I really appreciate you taking the time, man. Before you run, tell our listeners where they can find your work.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Of course, golfdigest.com all week. Check us out. We'll have it covered from all angles. Appreciate it, Matt.
Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at ESPN Southwest Louisiana. Also follow us on social media at ESPN_SWLA. Sit back and relax and enjoy the best weekend in golf right here on Overpark.